Hi, Shilpi.
Hi, Meher. How are you?
Good. I am so excited to have you at my show.
I am so excited to be here, seriously. And I really wanted to thank you for calling me in. And I'm excited to learn about you and excited to talk about what I'm going to be telling you. And yeah.
So, my show, Real People, Real Career, I actually talk about, the anticipations and what got you where you are today and what does your career look like, so that, when someone hears you talk and they're like, if she can do it, I can do it. So, welcome to Real People, Real Careers.
Thank you.
So, Shilpi, tell me about yourself. Who is Shilpi? And how did you start? Where did you start? What did your corporate career looks like? And I believe now you're an entrepreneur.
Yes, I am. I am. So let me take a step back and kind of tell you, because I think part of my career persona as well as my entrepreneur persona is kind of weave back into who I am and where I grew up. So I grew up in 4 different countries. I am Indian
Wow.
by race, and I was born in India, brought up in India, brought up in Thailand, brought up in Yugoslavia, and brought up in the U.S.
Wow.
And I have
Yugoslavia? I never
Yugoslavia,
could even think
yes,
of that.
ex-Yugoslavia now. And all of those countries, right? Each of these countries that I have mentioned have made a massive impact on who I am, right? And I think the cultural exposure, the diversity in thought process, the interactions with different traditions and ways of living have, I think, molded the kind of leader I have become, the
Wow.
kind of person I have become, the kind of worker I have become. So it's imperative for me to kind of start with that story. And I started my working career in the US and have been working as corporate for 22, 24 years now, and financial services. A lot of digital transformation is basically what that means is I transform businesses or parts of businesses in either increasing their revenue or turning around their internal misalignment and ensuring the bottom line is doing well. And that was all wonderful. I have been very fortunate to work for some really big names and big firms and a lot of learning. But in 2024, I was not in corporate anymore. I was
Ooh.
part of the massive layoffs that happened
Which company did you work for?
At that time I was with Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Yes.
Okay, that's a big name.
Yes, it was.
So 2024.
Yes.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago now,
yeah.
right? And
Just 2 years back.
Just 2 years back, yeah. And I came out of Microsoft.
That must be devastating for you because
it was, and
when you lose like a corporate job after so long being in corporate.
But it took me by surprise. So when I came out of that job, I was like, oh, it's okay. I'll find a job, right? It's not a big deal. I'd never been laid off, so that part was a little bit of a hiccup, but not a big deal. But 2 months or 3 months almost out of the job, I took a break and then I came back into the market looking for a job and I couldn't find one. And I think the emotional toil after that, what it took on me was hard. And what I'm talking about is because I started, which I hadn't realized, that I had started identifying my
self with a title.
Exactly.
I work for Microsoft. My title is this.
So when I introduced myself, right, back in the day, I was like, oh, I work for blah, 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 Ernst & Young, Microsoft, Freddie Mac, you name it. And I had the backing of that brand every single time. And doors would open. I had the
So you were not the brand, they were the brand.
And it was easier for me to have that because then it didn't mean that I had to define myself. The skills were mine, but never the role of the brand. And coming out of the job was I had to figure out who am I? Who is Shilpi?
Because now you don't have Microsoft, E and Y. Like I don't have GE anymore to brand me, and I had to redefine myself. Who am I?
So the emotional turmoil was a little hard. The redefinition was a slow process. It was not a conscious thought, right? So my first steps in that was, okay, I need to increase my network because I knew only folks at Microsoft and EY. So I needed to go out and network with people. But then before I started doing that, I had to figure out what is my brand? What does Shilpi
Who
stand
is
for.
Shilpi now?
Exactly,
Is
right?
Shilpi an E&Y, Microsoft, or a blend of both, or something
Or something
totally
else
new?
completely different. Yes. And it took me a few months to go through that cycle of who am I. And one of the things I really needed to hone in on, how do I differentiate myself from all the other AI generated uh, content that was coming up online, right? Because everybody was now using AI to create these amazing profiles, and they all sounded phenomenal. And I knew I was phenomenal. I just needed to figure out how was I phenomenal and how was I different. And that's where branding came in, because branding was not just about my skill as a product manager or as a transformation leader or as a strategy leader. It was the fact that Shilpi was more focused on people. Shilpi was more focused on really leveraging the people to impact process or impact technology or leveraging data, so on and so forth, right? So I started by writing articles with
Oh,
a
you're a
differentiating.
writer too.
Yes, and
See, a person is not only, E&Y or Microsoft. It's like
yes,
a full, there's so many different faces.
yes, yes,
So you're a writer. So you
yeah.
started writing articles?
I started writing articles. I started marketing myself, and that was the hardest part. I think putting
Mm.
yourself in front of people
Oh,
as
and you open up
you
with so much
are,
vulnerability and
yes,
yes.
it was very jarring for me. And I think,
Because when you're working for a corporation, you're just doing your skill set, and then you
yes,
come home and you're not vulnerable. You're not opening out there to people
yes,
to judge and to comment
yeah,
and
yeah,
to like or dislike you,
exactly.
and you get paid.
Yeah, and you get paid, and the doors open for you based on the brand, right? But now you are building your brand as as you're marketing yourself, and that it's a whole different level of
It's a whole different
vulnerability.
level.
And I think in today's day and age, especially, I think marketing is very key, because if you're not marketing yourself and you're not networking intentionally and thoughtfully, it's very hard to redefine yourself, or for that matter, even to stand out, right? Even if you have a clear idea of what you want to be, but it is essential for you to have that done intentionally. So all of that went into the homework and the execution of
And then
my
what did you
branding and
create?
this. So I got a job, I'll be honest with you, but in that period, that 9 month period until I got a job, I was networking, as I mentioned, intentionally, right? And part of that networking, my recognition in the market within the Metro Atlanta area, was people were curious about AI, but a lot of the AI meetups and conferences that I was going to were very focused on the technology aspect of it, or even the data aspect of it, but nobody was really talking about what is the business ROI behind it, what is the business outcome, what is the business impact, right? You're getting board members to say, I want AI done, but none of the leaders are really translating it into, well, how do I bring AI in? What is AI? And how does this impact my business?
How does it translate with our,
what is the
return on
business case
investment?
around
That's
it?
very, very important.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, this seems to be a gap. And because coming from both business and technology, I fulfilled, or I recognized that gap. And recognizing that gap, I decided, I'm going to have a platform which will help me network with the right folks, as in the decision makers and the buyers and the influencers of Metro Atlanta, um, and address with them the questions that all the other folks are having as far as leadership is concerned, is how is AI being brought into your organization? How do you do it? And then how is AI impacting your bottom line? And I was very fortunate, based on my network, that I was able to get speakers from OpenAI, from Microsoft, Accenture, Verizon, Global Payments, so on and so forth, right? I was very lucky and very fortunate.
I did
And
attend one of your open AI session as well.
you did.
Yes.
Thank you. I hope you liked it.
I loved it. Yes.
And
At that time, AI wasn't speaking, and then they were like,
yes,
very soon AI is going to be speaking. And I'm like, huh? And
yes,
now AI is speaking.
exactly, exactly. And that was the thing, right? Like it kind of opened up a whole different world for me. And what it also did, that whole journey of figuring out what my persona is outside of the brand, or the previous brands, it kind of helped me figure out, what, I can be whatever I want to
You can be
without
whatever.
necessarily a corporate
That's
name
the
behind me.
beauty of
Yes,
entrepreneurship. You
yes,
can just be whoever you want to be.
exactly, exactly. So in the interim, late last year, I decided that I'm going to do this full time. And what does this mean? So I have an organization called Future Crafters. And as by the name, you can tell it is basically crafting. The future is not set. I'm a massive believer in that, right? I do believe that it is up to you to craft what you want your future to look like, right? And I do believe that AI has the power to help us craft a future that can be amazing.
Beautifully said.
Yes.
I believe that too.
Yeah. And it is, I think, pervasive in every industry. So I think that's the reason why you see such a massive impact across the board, right? And unfortunately, some of that impact is with massive layoffs,
Yes.
right? Is because it is gaining efficiency and it's in part of your entire set of functions. It's not just a technology center.
Exactly.
It is business. It is finance.
Your day to day.
Day to day, everything.
Your personal.
Exactly. So
therapy is replaced by AI now.
Oh my God. Okay.
That's a different scenario. Yes. I'm not going to even go there right now, but I'm just saying,
It is. And
he or she can be a person therapist.
And it's a good one too.
It's a good one too. I believe it as well.
Yeah. With good guardrails and compliance, then yes, absolutely. So I do recognize, that I think AI has a massive impact, and it's a massive role. It has a massive role to play in our current and in our future. And Future Crafters wants to.
You're already answering my actually third question, because I was like, how do you see the role of AI, and what would you advise us to do?
Yeah.
So keep going.
So from a role perspective, right? No matter from an industry perspective, let me take a step back, right? The big things that I see is some of the examples, positive examples of AI, right? AI is a translator. So whether you are in China, you're in Dubai, or you're in the US, or you're in
Africa,
Chile, or exactly in any one country, right? You can translate. And I'm not just talking about a language translation. It's the meaning behind what the words are, translation.
How human brain actually goes down in different meaning and thinks differently as well.
Right? Or translate that, okay, I have done some research on diabetes too in China. Some of the doctors over there, and they've done it in Venezuela, or they've done it in parts of South Africa. You can collaborate and translate those researchers' findings into finding a cure. And they have found a cure, for example, with diabetes too, which used to be a chronic problem and is not. So the impact is phenomenal in that area, right? Exactly. Ozempic, that's a whole different
drug to make you absolutely thin and size 0, right?
Yes, and I have some misgivings about it, but that's a whole different. That's a whole different, to your point, topic, right? But the scary part also is that if leveraged in the wrong manner, it can give rise to surveillance, and you do not want it to get into the hands of people or countries that surveil its people, or that curtail rights, or that end up increasing the disparity of income between people or economies or industries, right? Because the big tech, for example, are the ones who are investing in AI early on, or the organizations which have a ton of money to float around are investing in AI early. So they are the winners, so to speak, because they're getting ahead of the curve, right? Which creates the disparity between them and the smaller industries or smaller organizations much bigger. And it's a hard thing to catch up then after a while. Having said this, right, there is a massive advantage as far as AI being in the hands of a common person, right? Like today, as an individual entrepreneur, I can create my marketing strategy. I can create agents by myself and create my content and put it up online all autonomously. I can have a counter.
I need to learn that from you.
Yes, of course, absolutely. An agent on. I use ChatGPT for my day-to-day, AI tool, and I have a persona in there that basically questions me on when I'm creating my strategy for Future Crafters. I have it question me, like, am I thinking this the correct way? What am I doing wrong? If I'm talking about my revenue model for this and I am targeting XYZ amount of money by the end of this year, am I thinking it correctly? And if I'm not thinking correctly, how would you direct me, right? And that's just one function of it. There are so many things that it can help an entrepreneur, help it expand and scale a lot faster. And that's just me as an entrepreneur. But if you are somebody who is who's not even in a tech business, right? Like I'm in a tech business, so it's a very different world. But say you are,
I'm not in tech business, so obviously,
I'll give you an
actually,
example. Yeah, I'll give you an example, right? And
if I want to scale my business,
so if you want to scale your business about give
if
me
I
an
want to scale
example.
MasMas,
You want to scale MasMas, right? So your audience outreach, right? Automating, first of all, automating who all you're reaching out to, that all of that can be done. So for example, see your content that can be
automated.
expedited. Your editing can be expedited. Your key reels within your entire podcast can be taken up automatically by AI. You can create LinkedIn posts, for example, if LinkedIn is your way of showcasing your edited reels, creating posts around it, creating the right tags around it, all of that can be done. Autonomous emails can also be done. Email campaigns, marketing campaigns, those are all part of the entire what AI offers as
through OpenAI
oh,
or Copilot.
Well, all of these are tools that you can leverage, and I would recommend
or Claude.
So each of them has its own strength, right? So Claude is one of those which is first, it offers a research-based suggestions. Mm-hmm. So everything has a reference, so which is a great thing. And if you're looking specifically for code creation, if you're looking for more mathematical and logical approach to how you're researching, then I would recommend Claude. And I think for ChatGPT is great for if you're looking for strategy creation. If you're looking for creativity, I think it's a great space to be. Gemini, I think it's wonderful for also creativity. What I like about Gemini is it didn't start off really well, but I think it has progressed dramatically. And what I also like about Gemini is that it encompasses Google. I mean, Google is everywhere. Absolutely. So the reach of what Google has, Gemini can leverage that.
Yes, and that's a big advantage.
Exactly. So if you are thinking through...
What about Copilot, Microsoft?
So I work for Microsoft, and I know I should be biased about Copilot.
I know, but I think Copilot has some work to do.
Yes. So I'm not
because everybody use Microsoft, and I think Excel, PowerPoint, everything, but I think Copilot has some work to do.
I'm not a massive fan of it, right?
I started being a massive fan of Copilot, and then I'm moving more towards Gemini at this point of time.
Yeah, I think Gemini is a great bet to do if you're talking about a tool, right? But here's what I would also think, right? Depending on where you are in your entrepreneur journey, right? If you're setting up, I would use one of these tools. But if you're in a journey where you want to scale, right? If you're going from, I don't know, 1 million to 5 million, and that's what your target is, right? Then I would recommend getting more than one model into the picture, because then you can create multiple agents that sit on the different strengths of these models and then create your agents accordingly.
Yeah.
So that's good only if you have the money to invest for scaling. Exactly. But if you're just starting out, I think any one of the models is a good approach to have. But I'll give you an example even of some basic stuff, right? Like I have a friend of mine who bakes cookies and sells them, right? Something as simple as I want to bake cookies that fit a specific culture, and there are certain ingredients I need. AI can tell you not only what those ingredients are, but where to get them, how much to get them. It can create an entire recipe book, so to speak, for all of that.
I know.
Right? And then target your audience accordingly. That if you're targeting, I don't know, a bar mitzvah versus an Indian wedding versus a
they need some soft cookies, or they need some actually zira cookies or something like that. And And
it can help you completely mold your product at the end of the day to your target audience.
Absolutely.
Which is, I think, phenomenal. Which I think as a as a cookie owner, sorry, as an entrepreneur who's selling cookies, and if I'm selling it to a clientele that I don't really understand or have exposure to, I think it would be very hard for me to do that. But with AI, it makes that path a lot easier. So lots of great uses of it. I think it's just a...
So what on the flip side?
Yeah.
Yes.
The rise in entrepreneurship is, I feel like, in the right direction. If cultivated and structured in a positive manner, right? Thrive Nexus, which is a nonprofit that I have, part of what we offer, and this is because of a lot of my own cycle of going through, I lost a job, how do I redefine myself, how do I ensure that I become the entrepreneur, and how do I get the right support? We offer people that path and that guidance to come and meet people who are either already in jobs, who are entrepreneurs, and how do you get the help and support that you need in not only going through the emotional turmoil that you're going through, but also to how do you recognize and build a self-awareness of, what do I want to be next? How do I redefine myself, right? And I think that's where, as a society and as groups like us, we need to offer that both intrinsically and externally as well.
I have to bring you back with Thrive, because this time it's about who is Shilpi, right? And so this was about you. And I think we have to talk about Thrive and how Thrive can actually help entrepreneurships. So you talked about a lot of advantage. And I mean, I sometimes feel like I have my own personal assistant. And before, I used to sit down and create my strategy, and I used to write words, and I used to research. Like when I wrote a book, I had to, it took me a year to write that book. But now I think I was writing a book now, it would be much quicker. So on the flip side, the pro, you talked about the pros, what are the cons? And what do you see how the world is changing with AI?
So the cons, I would say, is, and I'll pick up different personas and different examples, right? So for somebody like me who's lived on both worlds, right? So who has been pre-AI or pre-internet, even, or pre-smartphone, our development of our critical thinking and our brain, has had that space to think critically, has the space to question, right? So now that we leverage AI, we can still bring all of that thinking, right, into the picture, and we can take a look at it more thoughtfully, which is wonderful. And let me take a step forward with that, right? So when I started creating content with AI, I recognized, it took me a bit, but I recognized after a few weeks that a lot of people who were creating AI generated content sounded the same.
Yes.
And I'm not a fan of that, because to me, then you're just one of many, right? Then how are you any different? And I think that's where there's a flood in the professional space, right? Of all the resumes looking the same, all your content more or less looking the same. All of you sound amazingly smart. So for an employer or for a business partner who is looking to employ you, it is very hard to distinguish who's the real you behind that. What is the real brand? What is the real thinking behind you, right? So it's essential for you to be able to control your thought within the confines of AI, right? So that's one aspect. The other negative aspect, I think this is more for the younger generation, right, is how much are you using? So for my 16-year-old daughter, I will not have her use AI to create an essay, even though she could do a phenomenal. She's a wonderful writer without AI. She is a brilliant and gifted writer with AI, right? But I do not want her to use AI because it curtails the depth of her thinking. I want her to maybe have it critique her, and that's it. But I still want her to come up with the concept and the idea and
the creativity part of her brain to develop. My 10-year-old tries to ask Gemini, can you add this? And I was like, sorry, you're not doing Gemini. You have to use your head. So yeah, I see that there.
So I think this is from a generation perspective.
Your kid is a little more developed than mine at this point of time.
And that's the thing, right? Like, you imagine a generation of kids who is in the next 5, 7 years or 10 years, the folks who are going to come out of college to look for jobs, and that's a whole different job market, is a whole different beast. That's, we can talk about it in a few
And
minutes.
that's I do want to
Yeah,
talk about the job market,
yeah,
because I think, livelihood is one of a very, very important part of our. AI doesn't need food, water, or shelter. We do.
we
And being
do.
as an HR front, I am a big, you know, so totally support Maslow's hierarchy of theory.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I appreciate that, actually. I agree
that's
with
why I
that. Yeah,
sometimes worry,
yeah,
on when I take my HR hat on and I look at the development of AI and the way, because I feel when the industrial revolution came, there were a lot of jobs which were taken, which went away,
yeah.
but humans were needed, intelligence were needed, labor was needed, so many jobs actually were created. But now with I don't know how to think.
Yes, and I think the differentiation, right, between the industrial revolution versus the specific AI
Technology.
technology revolution is the dramatic difference is the industrial revolution impacted one vertical, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
And it took them almost 60 to 70 years for it to absorb in the market.
Yes.
60, 70 years to develop a whole different market and get assimilated
Absolutely.
into society, into creating their new operating model, creating new jobs, creating new education, so on and so forth, right? However, with AI, the speed is what the biggest issue is. So there are a couple of things. One is AI is impacted by color jobs, which is a very different.
The jobs you need intellect.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly, right. And the
Which
second,
never happened,
which has never
because
happened,
human
yes,
beings were the most intellectual,
yes,
you
yeah.
know,
And this
live.
is something smarter than well, and I'll say that with a grain of salt. It's not necessarily smarter because it is still leveraging the data that has been created by human
But we are
beings, and it's,
creating it to be smarter than us,
yes,
because
yeah,
we're feeding that animal
yes,
all this
exactly.
data.
It is able to dissect all of that data faster,
Yes.
because it's run on math, right? And what the other aspect of AI is, it is not a vertical, it's a horizontal. So it is across industries.
Yeah.
And that's where the danger is, right? It's the collapse of time and the fact that it's horizontal. So the the pervasive nature of AI is what I think is scary. And I think the development of how we educate our people, what will feed our people downstream, what will keep our people tied to a purpose, is an essential, I think, human aspect, or as a society we need to come to think of it. Because with the way, and I'm going to kind of get into a whole different topic, right, but with the way we are structured, and this is at a global level, right, we are very capital focused, capitalism
Absolutely.
focused, right? So it is all about the bottom line. Society should not be run like with capitalism in mind, or as a center thing, right? Because what that will take away is, it'll take away purpose, it'll take away jobs, it'll create artificial gaps, whether it is with poverty, housing crisis, lack of purpose. I mean, you name it. There's so many impacts that can happen if it is not managed well, or if it's managed by the wrong people, for this to become the norm. So I am hoping that
You put some
compliance is essential, right? But I'll say one more thing before we talk about compliance, right? In the last 2 years, I have met so many phenomenally amazing human beings, Mayor, that I'm humbled by what they're driving. These are people who are building communities. These are people who are standing up for what's right for people around them.
Absolutely.
And I think it gives me heart to recognize that despite sometimes what's going on at a higher level within our countries, there are the general population,
people.
exactly, the general population still wants, better housing, still wants a family unit that's safe and sound. It still wants education, still wants a purpose in life, still wants a community that they can rely on. And I
Health,
yeah,
wellness, well-being,
exactly,
love,
yes,
support,
yeah,
community, because that's where human beings thrive. And when you bring livelihood, you bring money, it all goes into that. The money is just a kind of a funnel,
yeah,
which feeds the purpose, which feeds love, which feeds community, which
yes,
feeds values, which
yeah,
feeds family. So I
yeah,
think, that I feel is at stake a little bit.
Yeah. And but thankfully there are lots of people, and we don't hear, unfortunately, because it doesn't get the number of clicks it wants to. We don't hear that part of our society, that part of our news, right? But it is there.
It is there,
thankfully,
very much there.
And I think it's essential for us to get that message out, that there are lots of amazing, good people, good organization, good entrepreneurs who are fighting that battle for all of us, on behalf of us. So
I'm trying to do that in my little way, to
yes,
create,
exactly,
avenues for people can think, hey, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. If she lost a job, okay, this person started a cake business, this person started a flower business, this person started a pet business, I can do that as well.
Yeah.
So that's where MasMas wants to create a sea of ideas when it comes to careers, especially on the entrepreneurship side.
And I think you're right on the fact that it is on a rise, right? Since last year, and I would say even before that, but I'll just talk about just the recent last year and a half, right? 1.5 million jobs, and this is just the US I'm talking about, right? 1.5 million jobs have been lost without being replaced, without being replaced, right? That is 1.5 million people and their families being impacted. That's 1.5 million people who's not contributing necessarily in the right way to the economy. Impacts housing, impacts food, impacts the extra classes, the schooling, you name it, and it impacts every aspect of your health, wellness, and it's impacting all of that, right? And
it brings anxiety, it brings fear, it brings all these mental issues are going to be raised, because if you're thinking about housing, if you're thinking about how I'm going to put food on the table, I'm not employable anymore because there's not many jobs out there. That is going to create the darker side of your personality, which is run by fear.
Yes, and it gives a whole different impact to the society, right? Like you have, to your point, if you have rise in unemployment where people are feeling unsure about where my food is going to come next, how am I going to get my child educated, or how am I going to take care of the handicapped mother that I have at home, or so on and so forth, or pay my mortgage, it'll give rise to uncertainty and I think, dare I say, violence in society, right? Which is not what any of us want, right? And especially in a country like ours, which we're blessed, I think, in this country. We have so much. This country has so much to offer.
So much to offer.
And I think that's a scary part. But going back to my point about unemployment, right? A lot of folks within this statistic are also turning to entrepreneurship, right? And the space needs to be, well, how do you help them redefine themselves?
All our time is limited in this world, right? And there's we want to leave some impact in some way or the other. What would you like to do before you leave this world?
So what would I do? So I'm a massive believer in education. It is one of those things that is deeply embedded in me, right? And whether it is my businesses, and I bring education into that, or it's my kids or anybody around me, right? Whatever it is that I'm educating towards or teaching towards, right? It needs to leave an impact. And so the space that I wanna impact, or the legacy I want to leave behind, is on women. I feel like women are community builders.
Absolutely.
And if you educate a woman, and I'm not talking about education as in going to school. I'm talking about education is in understanding something. And if you impact a woman,
one woman, she will create a whole community with that education.
She impacts her husband, she impacts her father, her brothers, her nephews, her sons. She impacts entire society, and she impacts her daughters, her nieces, and that's a compound effect, right? And I think that's an essential thing. I think as a society, globally,
and that has been missing for a while. Now women have fought so much and all around the world for this part of for education, that now we see the results. We are lucky.
Yeah, we are
very, very blessed and lucky. But I think women behind the scenes have put a lot of effort in doing that.
And I think it is essential because it's very short-lived, right? We've only had our rights for what, 30 years max, right? And
I never thought that.
yeah,
30
it's only been
years?
30 years. Yes, if you think
And
about
we still don't, that's a big subject itself,
yes,
right?
yes,
So journey
exactly.
of a woman, so
Yes,
that's a big subject
yes,
itself. So yeah, okay.
yeah. So
30 years? That's
nothing.
short.
Yeah, that is short. Like if you think about all the policies, whether it is a right for a no fault divorce, or right to have your own bank account, or right to own a property, or right to, make your own decisions on your body, all of that has been recent. All of that. And the fact that there are people, women, who are able to speak on social media so freely, it is for all the amazing women that sit behind us,
Sit
who have
behind
fought
us. Our
every
mothers, our
day
grandmothers, and
for
the mothers before that.
exactly for our rights to have. So it is our, I think, our imperative duty to continue that
And
fight and
protect.
not even protect. Exactly, I love that word.
Protect.
Yes, and protect that, and not be the spokesperson to take away that,
Yes. Till you
or
don't protect, you cannot fight further. First, you
exactly.
protect what you have,
Yes.
lock
Yeah.
your car, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
drive to the next
Exactly.
destination.
So yeah, I think that's a legacy, and that's the impact I want to do is impact women who can be the compound effect in society.
Thank you, Shilpi. I think it was wonderful. I learned a lot about AI myself,
Thank
and
you.
I probably will use some tips to scale my business.
I appreciate that. And
Yes,
you
and
need any detail around building an agent, I'm happy to help.
oh yes, I do need an agent badly.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for being on Real People, Real Careers. We'll
Thank you
see you
so much.
next.